Meena Kandasamy is a poet, writer, translator, anti-caste activist, and academic based in India. Welcome, ma'am, to KLF 8th edition.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, and even greater to actually interview or be in conversation with Dr. Thamizhachi Thangapandian. She is not just any MP, she is the MP in my constituency. And I remember that, this on April 19th we had elections. The whole previous April 18th I was throwing every cupboard upside down because I was trying to find my voter ID card. Then I managed to find it. And I remember leaving home around 7 o'clock or something, going all the way just to, put my vote for ma'am. So, it was so important for me and for a lot of us that she wins. And, she's the face of our constituency. She represents us and she raises our issues in parliament. But today is going to be a discussion both about her writing as well as, her political trajectory. And also, you have to excuse what is very apparent, which is that there will be a little bit of fangirling as well. And I want to give a little background to the fangirling. Yesterday, somebody asked me, what is it that made you so interested in English? And, I like to write, etc., etc. But I also said that, what did you do in your English classes? I said, at the end of every English class, I would run behind the teacher and I would be very shy. I would be so painfully shy. And all I wanted to, the teacher would expect that I'm going to ask some doubt. And I tell the teacher, ma'am, you look very beautiful. And thus I would run back to my class, sit in my chair. And that was like, the highlight of my day was looking at, and ma'am for me, she's also an English professor. She represents that, she's the most, perfect way in which, you could imagine your English teacher, So yeah, it's something about this aesthetics. And therefore, when she's a poet also, I can clearly understand that for her aesthetic, the idea of how to present oneself, how to present one's ideas, how to hold a thought, I think it's very intrinsic, it's a part of who she is. So I actually wanted to start on that question, what does beauty mean to you? Beauty in literature, beauty in life, beauty in politics, which is quite far removed from beauty, but yeah.
Thank you, Meena, for a wonderful, warm and right from the heart, lovely introduction. It's a pleasure again to share a stage with her. She herself, a poet and activist, her works I really hugely admire. And her outspoken way for whatever she believes in, which gives me a lot of hope in youngsters, especially the values as well as the firm ideas which she expresses through her works, makes me really proud of her. And to have her to have a conversation with me is an absolute delight for me. Yes, of course, beauty, what's the definition? Beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder is usually what a poet replies. There was a question asked to Gaius, Laila's lover Gaius, who's the most beautiful woman in the world? And Gaius didn't reply that just Laila. He said, Gaius and Laila. Yennoda Laila da romba alagu. So that's what justifies beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. But for me, beauty means real aesthetics, which is not worried about the gaze of men, which is not worried about the standards set by the society, which should get deep-rooted in my soil, in the ethnic aestheticism I believe in, personally speaking. And as she is rightly put on, we all look up to our teachers in awe. We all hold a single rose flower and deem it, like our days, deem it a pleasure and days made. If we hand over that flower to that particular teacher who grooms herself well and presents herself well. That way, again, thank you very much for that. And then again, beauty in politics. I think the one word is you're accountable to people. Though it sounds an oxymoron, beauty in politics, you're accountable to people, and then just when you sleep by the night, sleep should come to your eyes within the blink of the seconds. If you are able to do that as a politician, I think that's the most beautiful night or a day you would have had.
Thank you, ma'am. So I wanted to, start about to talk about your work and your literary journey. So you're known very much as a poet, and there is and Tamil culture, and it surprises everyone, wherever I go and I talk about the fact that poetry is so intrinsic. Like even if we have a political meeting, people are reading poems in the beginning of this. So poetry for us is not something that exists outside of politics, right? Like it's so imbibed and it's so intrinsic to all the political work that we do, and not just electoral politics. Even if it's armed struggle, even if it's like anti-election politics, communist politics. So this lifeblood of poetry that goes through your work. How did you think that this poetry, did it radicalize you? Or what led you to politics? Was it the political family, but also your own journey as a feminist, as a poet?
Yes, I come from a political family. I have this tag of a member of the DMK family. Even when I was born as a DMK party member. My father had been in politics as a DMK party member right from 1949 onwards, and my brother also. So it goes without saying that you're born being a politician. But taking a call as a poet is something really different from that. I always have felt that it is an inner journey. Of course, poetry and politics are intertwined. And nothing can be personal, especially with women. You might know very well that everything is political. So even when I choose to write in Tamil, I always get inspired by Chinua Achebe, who told that I stopped to write in English. He has been writing in English more than 20 years. Then one fine morning, I returned to my native language. That's my calling, he said. So it is the inner calling and the political question when you decide to write and what you decide to write. So poetry is most of an inner calling to me. But of course, it adds strength to my political views, to the way I just meet people and the way I hold beliefs in the public system also. I'm answerable to my poetry. Sometimes my guilt. Sometimes the promises which I never keep. Sometimes the stories, untold stories, when I go for canvassing or campaigning, I meet a lot of people who look up at me with promises to be filled, and those promises, unfulfilled promises, and sometimes my inability to prove, all these things make me either write a poem in hope or in hopelessness. So it's all intertwined, but more of an inner calling, inward journey. At the same time, it's a very powerful tool or weapon when it comes to politics as well as to social activism, poetry, and you are the example of it.
No, I really want, audiences here have heard me often. I want to pick more about, the role in which the female or the women poet is seen in Tamil Nadu, in Tamil culture, right? So, if you go back to the time of the Purananuru and earlier, you really have instances of women commenting about war, you have poets writing, even at that early time. But today, I think that, I don't know at what time this happened. There was a disruption. There was something that, women who are poets are somehow marked for social judgment. And you couple two things. One is that you are a poet in the public domain, and you're also a women politician in the public domain. And I'm very sorry that, to revisit an episode that personally hurt me very badly. And it involved you, because before the campaign, you were practicing your speech. And I think Thamizhachi ma'am had possibly suffered a fall or something. So, I think she was, her leg was in a bandage or something. And the problem is also reel culture, right? These days, everybody wants to make reels about everything. So there is no absence of privacy. There's no boundary. And so they had put this reel, I think 59 seconds or something, where ma'am was basically going over the points. And because she had broken her leg, I think she was sitting a little bit relaxed, with a little bit of relaxation. But the comments to that, the way that, just because a woman was reclining in the sofa, because she appeared to be, it was so much hate filled. And I mean, like, and there's another problem. This is the first problem, that, you are a woman, you are in your own house, you're in your own sofa, and you cannot sit the way you want with a broken leg. But there's a second level of the problem, is that I cannot support her publicly. Because if I support her publicly, people will say, DMK Sombe. People will say, oh, she's now become a DMK fan. And for me, that means I lose my credibility as somebody, who I criticize the DMK from time to time. So you cannot even go and, make this very human women to women gesture and say, no, I stand by her. Like, back off, you guys. Like, she's just a woman in her drawing room, on her sofa, with her broken leg, sitting the way she wants to sit. Because that will damage my own integrity, my own credibility. They'll be like, hey, 200 rupees, UP, go away. So, I mean, like, what is it that women do, and how is it that, So, I just wanted to really talk about the way we are publicly policed, and our bodies are policed, our words are policed. So,
yeah, that is the greatest menace, I would say, the disadvantage of being a woman in public. They expect you to be 24/7 prim and proper according to the standards set by them. So I had a fracture of my leg, and I was described as the Mamta Banerjee of Tamil Nadu. Why should I have to fake a fracture when I actually need to be on my toes running for a campaigning? Will anybody do that at that juncture? And when it comes to a woman also, it's another, as has been rightly told, like a man can actually relaxedly sit like this. That's why Periyar said, "Yen kaal mela, innori yen kaala pottu okkarren." What is the big deal for you? And you are in your house, in your home, just before the video, you are just rehearsing some lines. And for that, I was targeted, as was pointed out, so badly in the social media. That's the greatest, I think, the curse, I would say. And as has she been rightly pointed out, as a woman to woman, she can perfectly understand. You are constantly in the gaze of the virtual media. Somebody is always having a cell phone in his hand or her hand. You are always in the danger of getting photographed and coming out in the social media with some vulgar title or whatever it is. She can't support me openly. Then she would be labeled as a DMK supporter. See, as women to women, like both of us shared so many common beliefs and common values. And even if we don't believe, when a woman is, like unnecessarily targeted, we will always lend a hand in support. And this is a very sad state, especially when a woman is a public figure, especially in politics.
I want to also, talk on this, expand on this idea of, women. When I met Thamizhachi ma'am to, read, to get her books, and she gave me 7 or 8 books, but like a good student, I finished reading 3 books in full, and that gives me the courage. Especially, I would really recommend The Birthing Heart. The Birthing Heart, because, there's one form that I'm terrified of, that I can never really try or experiment, which is the short story. I can do poetry, I can do novels, I can do essays. But then anybody is a short story writer, I have an immense respect for them. But I'm going to come to the short stories a little later. I want to pick on one more aspect, which is that when we met, ma'am, you said to me that you are a member of the Standing Committee on Education. And, it had me thinking for a long time that, this country is not, just about women's bodies make people uncomfortable. What we wear makes them like cringe and all. But the question is also that women have never been easily accepted as intellectual people. And it took, because you go back to even the Madras presidency census 1921, only 2% of women had literacy, and this was like one of the more progressive places. And you also have systems like the Manu Dharma, or, whatever it is that Sanatana calls itself, where women are, not only are the Shudras, the lower caste, Adivasis kept out of education, but women are also kept out of, education. So there is this idea for a woman to lay claim to that space, to lay claim to being an intellectual. And in Madam's case, it's not just, public discourse and intellectualism, like I write, she also writes, but to be there as a part of a committee where education is right now the most polarizing fact, where, so much is happening. For instance, I feel about NEET and all these exams is that whenever there's an entrance exam, people spend the money on their boys. They don't spend money on sending their girls to coaching classes. So there's something happening profoundly to women in education. But what does it mean to be a woman who, takes this space of a public intellectual, the space of a thinking woman, and also on the question of education, what do you think is happening to the future generations?
That's a very, very important question, the need of the time, I should say. Because when I say that, I think, therefore, I am, people always dedicate this quote to the men folk. And I would say intellectuality is the first casualty, be it in the public space or in politics, generally speaking. But I'm here on this platform, having climbed up to those steps because of my education. I come from a small village down south. You must all be familiar with Madurai, a village near Madurai. And since I got my education, I should say that in a town near my village, Virudhunagar, and having come to do a PhD in English literature, all these steps are possible because of education and because of all the progressive movements, as has been rightly pointed out by Meena, like for the past 50 years, what has happened in Tamil Nadu. So I am the reaper of all those benefits, and I sit before you because I'm educated. But what's happening nowadays? Education had been the priority or the privilege of certain sections of the society long back, and we have burnt that bridge. And having come a long way, do we really reach that stage? Especially when it comes to examinations like NEET. Now what's happening at the UGC? The whole education system is getting diluted. You must all be familiar with the recent norms by the union government to dilute everything. Everything should be decided. Even a non-academic person can be appointed as a vice chancellor as per the union government's norms. So much is happening to dilute the educational system. That is what we raise our voice in the committee, especially when it comes to coaching centers. In Kota, what's happening? Number of suicides, what's happening there? Just before, we have had a session of how to parent before this session. And the pressure with which we handle this, especially the attention not given to the girls. I have written a poem about that in my first collection, about Silambai. Both of us, we began our schooling in the small village school. She was married to a mason. My parents were teachers, so I've had this privilege of just climbing up the social ladder, but she went down, deep down in the darkest pits of the society, since education was not given by her parents. But nowadays we had progressed, but not to that extent when it comes to choosing the higher educations. That is why the government is very, very progressive in giving incentives. And people will just simply say that, oh, it's all because of the votes, they're all. No, that's not the case. To give 1,000 rupees to a girl child from a government school, if she wants to get admitted in higher education for as a medical student or as an engineering student, that 1,000 rupees does really matter. It does not have any equation merely with the vote, as has been, like put on by the other opposition parties. It means a lot of difference. It makes in a girl's life, because the divide is yet to be bridged upon.
Thank you. See, this is something that I want to now speak about writing. Thank you for, Tamil Nadu has one of the highest gross enrollment ratios for women. So, and I think it's possibly higher than even, other European countries and elsewhere. So, more women are in higher education in Tamil Nadu than anywhere else in India. I think it's 49% at this point, right? So, it's very amazing and it's also very powerful. I wanted to ask you something about, about writing. Is that how does the process work for you? I mean, like when you were a teacher or you were a lecturer at Queen Mary's, when did you find the time to write, and how do you today find the time to write? And also, what took you from poetry to writing short fiction?
Yeah, as you said, short stories are a different genre. Poetry is the highest form of any literary expression. Kavida என்பது மொழிகளின் அரசி அப்படினு சொல்லலாம். Like to write a poem And Meena has actually broken all the set standards of what a poem should be or ought to be. That's what I really like in her poems. A short story is something really different because you should know where to stop, put a full stop to a story. I think Kalapriya once said, in a chariot festival, you should know where to just stop the car at the right spot. தேரை இழுத்துட்டு போகிறது பெரிய விஷயம் இல்லை, எந்த இடத்துல சரியா தேரை நிறுத்தணும்னு உங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்கணும். That's what happens in a short story. And people will always say that the Ibsen's twist is very, very important. All those old things, we need not worry about it. But I personally feel that novel is the highest stage which has, you need to really sit and work, do your research, because it has its own span of covering longer periods of history, be it a societal history or whatever it is. You need to really put in your soul and heart and hard work into it. But short stories, especially the stories, this birthing hut, talk about the rural women folk of my village, the situations or the important key moments in their life. I come from down south, from a village or a place which is sparsely fertile. We do have very rare occasional rainfall. It's supposed to be the hottest place. The summer season is the most prevalent season. But my women folk there, they have a very, in spite of their hard life, they have less complaints because they're very independent. So many of them are single parents. So many of them would have driven their husbands and walked out of their families because they are drunkards. So many of them may be shepherdesses or they work as maisons or whatever it is, but they face life with so much of vibe and positivity. So those cues I take from them. For example, this short story collections have those women characters in it. They break the barriers also, superstitions also set by the society or by their predecessors. So I take my time, when I get anything from a phase. For example, when I go for campaigning, a woman's eyes will peep from the windows and a hand will be waving out. They won't be coming down. I always look out for the women, how they express themselves. Do they have the freedom to run towards me like the men do? And most of the places I have not seen, only through the windows or in the down, or they'll be really shy if they are caught unawares. If you go the early morning campaigns, those things really trigger moments of speculations in me. And as I travel or in the nights, I sit and then write. Sometimes you can't decide which form of expression you're going to choose. If it's a poem or if it's a short story, it decides on its own. So that way, human beings, especially women, are the raw material. My women folk, I'm part of them. So I capture the moments and it will disturb you. It will, go on itching. I should put it in writing. Sometimes you tear the half-written pages into pieces. You are not happy with the whole thing. Something is missing. So sometimes in one shot, you write the whole thing, you pour out. This title story is like that only. What do we do?
Yes, I want to actually come to the title story because I don't want to give away a lot of the story, but one of the concept of the theme is about menstrual taboos. And also the taboo that surrounds, like, how long are you consider, and this is something that unites, women as well as, the concepts of untouchability in this country is that women are routinely stigmatized as being untouchable. When you're like on your period, you're not holy enough, you're polluting, and you cannot approach the God and all this. Actually, this is the question I want to ask you for a very, very political question, because in Tamil Nadu we have had, especially under Karunanidhi Kalaignar, this idea of breaking the taboo, the what do you call, the fortress of priesthood, and opening priesthood to everybody, and saying that people of all castes, communities and backgrounds can become priests. But somehow it's still in public perception seen as a masculine thing. Like, when are we going to get priesthood for women? Which is, because we still, even to fight for equality for all men is one struggle. But, at some point, what about women, the right to become priests? And the second question, because we are in Kerala, is what do you think about Sabarimala?
The priesthood, taboo about the priesthood has been, I mean, actually, it's been progressively expanded by our most respected founder leader, Dr. Kalaignar. I think there is a woman priestess now because apart from the caste, other regulations, you know, like anybody can enroll themselves for this getting trained as priests, and there are a training for women priestesses also. And I believe, I'm not so sure about the name of that lady woman.
But is it like Oduvar, like, you know, they do the same in
Not
the
the
temple?
Oduvar, the
Actually
priestess,
priest, okay.
actually priestess.
Okay.
Actually priestess. It's been, I think our chief minister had actually handed over the thing. And when it comes to, you know, like the Sabarimala thing, I have two different opinions on that. Like, as a politician also, as a poet also, as womanhood should be respected everywhere. But at the same time, that is a path which needs to be tread very, very carefully. You need to respect the sentiment on the other side also. So it is a sort of a balance that I would say. Here you can maybe attribute it to the careful wordings of a politician. Yeah, but still, I would just say that you have to listen to the sentiments on the other side. At the same time, there should be a balance also on the both sides.
I asked, you know, there are some progressive politicians whom I like a lot, Sashi Tharoor, ma'am, but to get a single word on Sabarimala from them, it's like
we are hard rocks to crack.
Yes. So they would rather have me have trouble with them than get themselves into trouble. So, going back to, there's something quite interesting because, you know, I translate a lot from Tamil and I write exclusively in English. One or two times I write in Tamil, but only if somebody puts a gun to my head. But a lot of your writing is in Tamil, but your scholarship and your reading and your PhD, all of this is in English literature. How do you combine these worlds, or do you keep them separate?
Yeah, that actually makes Meena's question makes me bring closer to the identity which I choose to express. That is it. Tamil I choose for my creative writing because I write in a specific Calicut dialect, the dialect of my soil, their language. It's a different dialect. So I choose to write specifically. I mean, it comes naturally to me. That's who I am. Not that I sit and then I pick up for all the dialects and then put it in writing. It comes so naturally, like my second skin to me. And I feel that that's the best form for my creative expressions. And English, of course, I have, because I've studied all throughout an English medium, and I did my MPhil, MA, PhD in English literature. English, always I feel that it gives a lot of liberation, you know, like when we were all suppressed in the name of caste, everything, it was English education which liberated us. But at the same time, you know, like as a third world post-colonial poet, I have my own stand to write against the empire. It is high time that we rewrite our history. I rewrite my history, which has not been told by a colonizer. My history from my point of view as a regional poet, a third world post-colonial poet. I choose my language, my native language, to express my creative writing. And of course, with all respect to any other language, for that matter, with English, I believe in translations. I write my criticisms, I write my all the reviews or op-eds in English, because still I feel that it's the best way to communicate to the whole world. So I don't feel anything odd in that. I feel perfectly comfortable in both, but I choose to write in my native Karisal dialect when it comes to poetry and short stories, especially in that Tamil. That is my political statement. That is the stand. என்னுடைய எழுத்து என்னுடைய கிராமத்தின் புழுதி படர்ந்த கிளைச்சாலையிலே இருந்து கிளைக்க வேண்டும். I am not this person with the lipstick or whatever it is. This is my aesthetics. But the sweat and the வியர்வை நினம் கவிச்சை புழுதி இதுதான் I am. Karisal Kaatu Tamilachi. So that is expressed in my short stories, and I'm very particular, very so particular about that.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question that, because I was reading your poetry as well as your short stories, and I felt that this theme of motherhood, we just had a session on parenting here, so I definitely wanted to work that into a question. This theme of being a mother, this theme of especially being mothers of daughters, is recurrent in your poetry as well as in your fiction. And it doesn't matter, how old the daughter is. Like there's some poems where it's addressed to this software girl, But it's also sometimes, like in fiction, you talk about how the mother looks at the little girl's dress. So what do you think it is to? And unfortunately, I'm the mother of boys. I always wanted girls and ended up with 2 boys. So yeah, what is it to be the mother of girl children, and also how does motherhood play, or what is the space it takes in your writing?
Being a mother of 2 girls is a boon, a blessing, I would say. After a certain point of time, they are your friends. They are partners in your crime. I don't know about the son's mother raising his son, but as a mother of 2 daughters, I'm really happy about, like, you can confide anything with them, and they also on that way, they support you in all the ways possible. When I had been awarded a fellowship, Australia India fellowship, way back in 2005 or 6, my elder daughter was admitted in the ICU. She met with an accident. But at that time, I have this usually, this guilt, which has been, like conditioned by the society, like always. We mothers are supposed to be the most sacrificial ones. You sacrifice everything for your children. That's how, the society portrays, especially nama India Kalachara அமைப்புல குடும்பமே ஒரு குழந்தை மாதிரி இடுப்புல ஏறி உட்கார்ந்திருக்கு. In that case, unless otherwise your daughters understand and support you. With all the guilt when I asked her, should I have to go, it was my elder daughter who stood by me and said, no, nothing is going to change. I'm here will be here for the next 1 week. You better go and accept that honorary fellowship. You had to do that. The same way with my second daughter also. And it really makes a lot of difference when you draw strength, because they are, apart from being daughters, they are women. So in trying to understand all their contemporary, they have their breakups, they have their own, cycle of love affairs, how they, cope with all the things in life, and then how they are facing the societal pressure also. As this contemporary children, it means a lot to me, especially when it comes to Tamil society also. I've been a working professor. Most of the professors, women professors, they come without taking proper breakfast. They pack everything for their children. They come to the canteen by 11 o'clock and gulp something which is unhealthy for them. That has been the way the society has been, and they idealize it. That is the ideal motherhood. Now we are all here. You eat well. You keep yourself healthy. You are very important. Love yourself. At the same time also, you give part of yourself to the attention to the family also. And this has to be understood by your daughters. They need to be actually proud of you. They need to support you. And that's a wonderful feeling, I should say.
Thank you. My sons also support me, but it's very practical support. They'll say you have to go and do your work because only then we can buy toys. It comes from a very practical place. But the thing about breakfast is very interesting. So my mother was, a professor, and she, when the CM, the Tamil Nadu CM launched the breakfast scheme, I never went to a government school. I went to a Kendra Vidyalaya, which is, central government school. But I really felt I never had a breakfast for a single day. A single day, 12 years, I only had a glass of milk and went to school, because my mother was, a heart patient. She couldn't get up early in the morning. And we never had a breakfast as an idea, even in the house. Like if you have a mother who is not very well, and your father has, to struggle and do other things to keep the house running. So just this idea of, giving breakfast to children was so radical, because what do you do with working mothers? What do you do with mothers who are not well? how do you take care of, your children's nourishment? And so yeah, I think this breakfast was a huge thing. But actually, the reason I wanted to start about progressive Dravidian ideas, or the Justice Party starting the breakfast scheme, was that, and again, sorry to put you in a spot, is that there is at this point this huge conversation happening in Tamil Nadu around Periyar. And what I think is what the Hindutva forces could not do directly. Like for a long time, they started all types of propaganda against Periyar, and it did not work out at all. So what they have now done is to launch vicious propaganda against him by using, other political actors. And but Periyar holds such an important space, especially for Tamil women and our rights. Like I translated a lot of his work, especially his speeches on women, into English. And what I realized was that the way he was so clear, for instance, about public life, he says two things. One is he says, I'm worried when I, see women coming with children to public meetings because they are hanging on to them like monkeys. And how can the women listen to this meeting? And then, he's absolutely understanding the problems, specific problems of motherhood. But then there's also something that he speaks as far as early as, right from 38, when the anti-Hindi agitation started, but even up to the 70s, when he says, we will become liberated as a culture, as people of Tamil Nadu, when our women get ready to go to jail. So he was not only talking about women, going and voting, or women understanding, or, women having self-respect marriages, but the radical act of going to jail, the radical act of subverting the state, this very militant act of saying that, you can imprison me for my ideas. And so this is the kind of Periyar that, we grew up with, and suddenly there are all these efforts to, go against him. So what do you feel about this entire debate?
Yeah, I can very well endorse your views, of course, your book, Miss Militancy. It's actually, I really like the title which she chose for her, that particular book. Coming to Periyar, see, we all must be familiar with Aristotle, and we do still revere him as the philosopher of the highest what would I say, the order probably. But when Aristotle was teaching to his disciples that women were subjective to men, I don't know how many of us know that. He didn't have that sort of a progressive idea about women. Even Pythagoras, he didn't have. When he was teaching, there was a woman politician in Athens who was just raising her flag flying high when he was teaching his own disciples. And you still regard him as the highest rank of a philosopher. But when compared to Periyar, his ideas about women were regressive. Whereas we have Periyar, but for him, we wouldn't have had the stages like this. I would rank him as one of the most important feminists, I would say. A small incident probably I would quote from his life, because Periyar always, respected the feelings of women, and women should have the rights to express. In one of the public meetings, somebody asked Periyar, you were always advocating for the women's right, to break up or to walk away from, or to be in the marital relationship with all her other fancies or whatever it is. Would you send your wife Maniammai tonight with me to sleep with? This was the question asked to Periyar in a public meeting. Without a blink of an eye, Periyar replied, fool, you have to ask this question to Maniammai, not to me. It is her decision that matters. So that is the one thing that can sum up how he stands for all of us together. And now, having reaped all the benefits, all the progressive thoughts, because whenever the DMK government comes into power, whatever has been advocated by Periyar, because women should have the right to property. And Tamil Nadu was the first state to implement Periyar's dream in 1989 in the whole of India, under the leadership of Dr. Kalaignar. 1989, we have enacted that act for women to have the right to their property. So having reaped all those rights, you pick up certain quotes from Periyar. For example, Periyar said, Yaar and the Tamilan ke edavadhu varalaru irukka? Adha mattum eduthukirathu. Why did he say that? You have to connect it with the statement that follows. Why should you have to follow those 60 years of Sanskritized calendar? Does it have any reference to the scientific thinking? You should have your own calendar year which resonates with the scientific temper. That is what is Periyar up to. So nowadays, people just, just come and pick up certain things without understanding Periyar properly. And you have reaped all the benefits of Periyar's thoughts and philosophy. Now you are just mudslinging on them. We just need to really ignore them.
Just for context, Tamil calendar uses words like Subhagridu, which has no meaning in Tamil itself, and which is a lot of, Sanskritic incursion into Tamil culture. Just wanted to clarify that. Now the other question is that we are going to, after 5 minutes, we're going to open up the questions to the audience. So please keep yourself ready. There's something I just wanted to pick your brains about, which is that sometimes, I came back after meeting Sumati ma'am or Thamizhachi ma'am and said to her, when I look at you, I find this really happy, content, satisfied person. And for that, I'm actually happy that you're in politics. Because when I meet, women who are writers, there is so much feeling of unsatisfaction, the fact that there is so much going on in the literary scene, like little petty politics, little grievances, little favoritisms. And it really affects these people, it really affects them so much that sometimes even the world of politics seems happier place. I don't know how, but it seems like an easier place to inhabit. So my word of advice is, what would you tell young women who aspire to be writers, and also young women who aspire to enter politics? And please, ma'am, don't tell us that we have to go to the ward and start at the level of the councillor and then come. Because that's also very disappointing to hear. But just a general message for women towards who choose the path of literature or the path of politics.
Well, politics is still regrettable when it comes to women-related issues. Still, women reservation bill is a far-fetched dream. All false promises are given to us. Still a long way to go. When I was just expressing this view of mine, I told a male colleague, a parliamentarian, see, reservation is a birthright. In fact, 50% reservation we should have. I mean, reservation is a birthright. Nobody should keep it in a platter and give it to us that we are supposed to take it. And he was taken aback. I said, ma'am, how would you say that? 50% we can't even imagine. That is the way, still the patriarchy would respond. So definitely it's still regrettable when it comes to politics. But at the same time, I have found out my little spaces of contentment in my village. See, those are hard lives. My women folk there, my Periyammas, Chittis, the Guruvachi, Silambai, whoever it is I talk about, they are having a terribly hard life in their day-to-day life. Economically not well settled also. That they will be working in the 100-day schemes in the government. It's not a rosy life. But still in the evening when I see them, they take a dip in the village pond with a nice mud bath. I mean, just drying out their hair, eating out something, they go back, cook nice rasam and nice fresh rice, and then eat sitting in the stone benches and eat. So those little things give me hope. When they face life with such vivacity and such, resilience, why not I? So I take content in probably writing or, small things which appeals to my heart. That I do find only in my village. In my village, Kanma Karai, in the flora and fauna of my village. And for the youngsters coming to politics, I wouldn't advise you to climb the ladder step by step. Just make a brazen attempt. Be vocal about what you believe. Be vocal about what you think about a particular party or whatever it is. Straight away. Use all the platforms to express your views. And then if you want to join any party which is suitable for your ideals, straight away you approach to the leaders or whoever it is. And then you can tell them, these are my credentials and this is how I plan my life. Just give it a try. But before that, make yourself vocal and be sure about your ideology.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions now. Is there a mic going around? Yes, yeah.
Hello, check. Ma'am, I really adore you. I actually have two questions, but I'll try to make it short. The first one that I have is about the menstruation taboos. இப்போ சபரிமலை கோயிலுக்கு போகணும் போகக்கூடாதுங்கிறது அந்த sentiment we respect it. There are some temples where we don't allow men also, that is fine. But the problem where it comes is அந்த 48 நாள் விரதம் இருக்கும்போதோ இல்லை வேற எந்த கோயிலுக்கு போகணுங்கிற போதோ women வந்து menstruation அந்த பீரியட்ல இருக்கும்போது the way she is being treated is so absurd. You can't even look at them, you cannot even be around them. இப்படி ஒரு oppressed women வந்து எந்த ஒரு கம்யூனிட்டிலையும் ஒரு oppression இருக்கு, especially during the menstrual cycle. How do you tell us, or how do you want this to be channelized with the rational thinking is one of the question. The other one is, like she asked, on the intellectual side of it, especially when women who doesn't want to be in a social platform or something, ஒரு சின்ன ஸ்பேஸில் ஒரு ஆஃபீஸ் ஸ்பேஸ்லையோ அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும்போது நான் ஒரு ரைட்டரோ இல்லை நான் ஒரு போயட்டோ அப்படின்னு சொல்லும்போது அந்த ஒரு ப்ரீ ஜட்ஜ்மெண்ட்டோட பார்க்குற இது அந்த பேட்ரியார்க்கல் சொசைட்டி அண்ட் அந்த ஒரு மேல் ப்ரிடாமினன்ஸாக இருக்கிற இந்த சொசைட்டியில் வாட் வுட் யூ லைக் டு டெல் ஃபார் விமென், யங் விமென் who yearn for this appreciation from people? Do you think we should look for that appreciation or just be how we are supposed to be? That's it.
See, the short story which I wrote about this birthing hut deals with that menstrual taboo only. There is a taboo back in Tamil Nadu, I don't know whether it exists here, in that the house in which a child is born, it is, you are not supposed to, enter inside that house and have food or water because of that menstrual taboo for 30 days. For the birthing houses also and for that condolence places also. அது தமிழில் வந்து முட்டுன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க, முட்டு வீடு. இப்போ வந்து அந்த தீட்டு வீடு ஆர் முட்டு வீடு, தீட்டு இஸ் த முட்டு வீடு. அண்ட் தோஸ் டூ விமென் இன் மை கேரக்டர்ஸ் தே பிரேக் தட். ஏன்னா அவங்க they met with an accident and they are not without any water or food. They just saw a hut. They didn't know that it's a hut which has given birth to a small child. And there is one Periyamma, elderly lady, who believes in all these taboos and she doesn't want to enter there as soon as she realized that. But the practicality forced her to have the food given by that party in that particular house. So what are all these myths up to or taboos up to? When life, puts you in life faces you with you can't face life with prepared questions. So you can't just face life also with all this prepared set values. So at certain point of times, you have to make decisions like this. And those decisions are being broken by uneducated village women folk who are far more progressive in their thoughts. My village deity, Vanapechi, we have this Pusari. Vanapechi loves to drink toddy, smoke beedis and meat. This is what we offer to her. So we don't have any taboos of having any intermediary between Pechi or me. So I prefer those goddesses and I express my views in my poems through her. Pechi goes to the mall in a city trying to get some nail polishes. Then finally she returns to village stealing some sanitary napkins. So what are all the பெண் ஒரு பொழுதும் வாழ்விலும் இலக்கியத்திலும் ஒன்று போல சித்தரிக்கப்படுவதே கிடையாது. She has to address to contemporary issues. So you need to, in the private spaces also, of course we all need appreciation. If you receive it, well and good. And if you don't give up. Because anyways, we all earn for that appreciation in love, in a marital relationship, in a partnership. But if you don't get it, just enjoy from whichever quarters you get it or just march towards it. It will definitely fall on your space. And the other question is again, it's a question of a certain belief which this country has, has been in turmoil for over the years. This side of the fence and that side of the fence. And as politicians, we have to really tread carefully. But I would personally tell you that, like you can choose whichever goddesses which accept you as you are. That's where we all turn to. Pechis, Rakachis, like Kannimar, who sit and bitch about the society, who sit and then smoke. And if I go and give them a piece of paper of a poem, they'll just tear it into pieces and just wipe off your bums with it. What do you do with the poetry when we are all suffering like this? So we have a vibe with those goddesses, and let's be just with them, to them, and whatever, like it's enough for us.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Tamari from Tamil Nadu, and it's really like a boon for both of us to be seeing both powerful Tamil women over here. And all I have is admiration for both of you. One thing that I wanted to appreciate you is I have been wondering about the latest schemes that the government has been doing for, especially for women, maybe with my pen or free bus ticket. And whenever I work in a college as an assistant professor, and whenever I travel in the bus, I see how people are happy about it, like especially women, as you have rightly pointed out. Women from rural areas, they work in 100-day scheme, and it's been a real privilege for most of us. And as a voracious reader, ma'am, I'm really admire. I never knew this side of you. I have been listening to all your speeches, but not your books. So from this day, I'll make it a point to read it. And you have, from your speech, I have got that you have read from Aristotle to Thamizhachi, African literature, Tamil literature. You have your feet everywhere. And I have this one small question. What really, or who is that one writer who made you write, who inspired you write, and which is the best book that you would say that it has inspired you till date? Thank you, ma'am.
Well, there are so many writers and so many books, I would say. And the list is endless, because at certain point of time when you start your life with reading with Enid Blyton, Milton Boone. I mean, when you are 14 or 13, you cross all those stages.
Ma'am, you can't look at me and say Milton.
No. I'm sorry. I started my life like that. My professor used to call these things as domestic poison. Yes. See, that's where I got my turning point in my life. I was believing, like as a student of literature, as a gold medalist, I was that, everything and all those shallow things. It was my professor in Tyagarajar College, like put me down in the places. And these are all domestic poisons. Come on, girl, wake up to the greatest minds, classical minds in literature, George Eliot, D.H. Lawrence, Beatrice Webb, all those great minds I was introduced. Also, he insisted that I had to return and have a firm familiarity with my classics of my Tamil language. As has been, there are certain things in our Ahananuru and Purananuru, like Udankattai Erudal and the Madri, Palsandri Ray is also there. But at the same time, we have more than 49 Tamil women poets in the Sangam era who were expressing. So, at certain point of times, you do have certain inspirations in your life. Right from Atmanam, Bharatiya, right from, I can have a long list. And also I admire John Donne, of course, admirer of Shakespeare, but still John Donne, Sylvia Plath, so many, the list is endless. And mostly for my stories and poems, my women folk, their raw experiences, that is where I get my inspiration. My Apata, my Bakiyam, Azhagu Patti Kettanga, Meena. There's one Bakiyam in my uru who has lovely tattoos in all her shoulders. As a child, I asked her once, what are the meanings of this tattoos? And she replied, Artham Pata Azhagedu. If you are so particular about the meaning, there's no point in admiring, like just beauty. Artham Pata Azhagedu. So all these things, like I get my own inspirations from.
Thank you. One more question, we'll finish?
Yeah.
Okay, time is apparently up, but yeah.
Okay,
Sure. Oh, sorry, ma'am. Yes, the last question.
Just one last question. Ma'am, you've been a very sensitive person. As a poet, you've been very sensitive and you had a freedom to express your ideas, put it into words and all that. Now that you are a politician, every word you utter will be criticized, sensationalized. do you feel restricted as a politician, being a poet and politician? Does it restrict your flow of language, poetry?
No, it doesn't restrict the flow of my language, but it is a tightrope walk. You know how careful when I answer her some of her questions. So, yeah, but when I write, you can see the raw part of me. These books never lie. Neither her books or none never lie that it is. You cannot sit and write a poem with the false propaganda. But when I speak as a politician, I'm a little careful. You must have been. I have to accept it also. So I never felt that confrontation when I write. Of course, I feel guilty about it and I express those guilty feelings in that. But an art or any piece of literature should be very genuine and right from the heart. Thank you, Meena, for having done this wonderful job. Let's have one picture together.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thamizhachi Thangapandian. Thank you so much, Ms. Meena Kandasamy, for a wonderful session. And I would like to pass an information to the audience that we have arranged a pavilion near to the bookshop, and you will get the signed copies of your favorite, signed copies of the book written by your favorite author, Ms. മീന കന്ദസ്വാമി. ബുക്ക് ഷോപ്പിനടുത്ത് തയ്യാറാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ള പവലിയനിൽ നിങ്ങളുടെ പ്രിയ എഴുത്തുകാരി മീന കന്ദസ്വാമിയുടെ പുസ്തകങ്ങൾ ഓതർ സൈൻ ചെയ്ത് കൊടുക്കുവാനുള്ള സംവിധാനം ഒരുക്കിയിട്ടുണ്ട്.